Hi beautiful souls, it's Tan here today talking about Neptune in the 8th house. Now this would also apply to you if you have Pluto in the 12th house. And before you go ahead and watch this video, I'd recommend that you watch my Neptune introduction video first, so links up there and description box below to get a more holistic perspective of what Neptune's actually doing in your chart. So, Neptune rules Pisces and the 12th house. The 8th house rules Scorpio and Pluto. So when you put these two together, you have something very interesting. And also you might want to watch my 8th house video first, links up there in the description box below, to get a more holistic understanding of the 8th house before you come and watch this video. Okay, so Neptune, quick summary, always takes us from a place of illusion to truth. And with this particular aspect of Neptune in the 8th house, there's an illusion when it comes to power. This aspect really has a theme of taking pain and transforming that into power. But if you have this aspect, you tend to start off first with the power by avoiding the pain and thinking that you can jump right ahead and get to the power. So the illusion of power with this aspect is that sometimes you can take power for granted. So there are a couple of things that can happen when you take power for granted. The first thing is that you might be someone who has a fear of death and you want to be able to conquer death. And so what can result is something called an invincibility complex, where you might use your personal magnetism, which you have a bunch of personal magnetism, use this in order to get other people to kind of do what you want so you can feel more powerful, or use that to get by in life so that you don't have to face failure or rejection. But the thing is that life catches up with you and eventually you have to come to terms with death. The next thing that can happen with this aspect is that there can be a dismissal of fears. So you kind of want to escape fear. So what you can do in this situation is something called a sin of omission. When there's a situation in your life that really asks you to confront your fears, you just say no. You just omit it completely. And sometimes you might kind of project this onto an outer external reality rather than looking inwards to figure out what's the cause of the fear and things like that. The other thing that can happen is that you can be willing to bond and have intimacy with people, with everybody, with anybody, so fast, so easily, because you feel like, well, I can't get hurt. I might as well just trust too easily. But then you'll see later on why there's a feeling of you can't get hurt. So if you as a Neptune in the 8th house, when you continue with these three kinds of behavior throughout your life, there will be situations, and these situations usually are crisis situations and traumatic experiences that come into your life so that you can come to terms with death and power. And you can come to realize that we have no power over death. And when you are faced with experiences like a loss of someone you love, or maybe it's just a loss of money, a loss of resources, a loss of yourself, what is likely to happen with people who have Neptune in the 8th house in this situation is that they are going to kind of punish themselves harshly for it by having a victim mentality and thinking, why is this happening to me? Why am I losing all these things? And they're going to turn inwards and punish themselves from inside by thinking that, oh, I am not attractive, I'm not worth it, I don't have self-esteem, I can't get all these things that I want. The self-esteem begins to weaken. And psychologically, this is a psychologically weakening situation that can happen with Neptune in the 8th house. And when you are rushing into an intimate bonding situation with someone, what can happen is that, because you're going into it feeling like you can't get hurt anyways, you are invincible anyways, Or if I do get hurt, I can deal with it. Pain is not so bad. It could be either one of these things. What can happen is that, you can be in a very dangerous situation of overlooking the red flags in a relationship. Maybe, the red flag was present since the start of the relationship, but you overlooked it so that you can get quickly to the bonding. And then when you find out how this person is actually behaving to you, and you feel like, and deep inside that you should be out of this relationship, but because you've already committed, you've already bonded, and you feel invincible in this bond, what you end up doing is you end up pushing the person harder. Like if they're being toxic, you push back, and then you end up being the one that's kind of overpowering them and pushing them into a corner which they can't get out of. So there can be a lot of control and manipulation that goes on within a committed bond that you decide to commit to too fast. So the key here is that you have to understand that people are complex, and the understanding of people's complexities deep down is something that has to be done before you are putting your trust out there to bond very deeply with them, so that you don't have to resort to control and manipulation to keep that person with you when you actually should just let go. And when the Neptune in the 8th house person realizes that their relationship is toxic and it ends, or they finally learn to let it go, there can be so much denial, because Neptune is the planet of denial. And the 8th house is the house of traumas and crisis and deep psychological issues and intimacy. So there can be a denial of what's actually happening with your psychology. So, a loss of a relationship is considered to be a traumatic experience. Any kind of relationship, it is very stressful. And Neptune in the 8th house can deny this by thinking, what? I can't possibly be vulnerable. This is not happening. Vulnerability is almost like a foreign subject to you, and you can then start to suppress pain. And what happens when we suppress our pain? We go through PTSDs, post-traumatic stress disorders. That's an extreme case. But we can also, from time to time, have anxiety, panic attacks, or in a less extreme case, just really angry outbursts of anger, and a deep distrust in people. Kind of be something like you trust somebody really, really much one day, and then the next day you're polarized, you don't want to be with them anymore. The next day you come back and you're really bonding, the next day, not doing this anymore. So that is something that can happen with this placement. And also, because the 8th house is the house of sex, there are two things that can happen here with this placement, is that you can either be a late bloomer or promiscuous. In the case of promiscuity, this will kind of result in a bit of a sex addiction kind of attitude if Neptune is really harshly aspected in the 8th house. In the case of a late bloomer, sex can almost seem like it's intimidating, or it's or you can feel almost like sexually inadequate, or there can be some kind of sexual repression, depending on how harsh Neptune is being aspected in the person's chart, of the person who has this aspect, this placement. So this is a really hard placement to be having Neptune. Pisces and Scorpio are two of the, and Capricorn maybe, are two of the, what if you have like Neptune and Capricorn? That can kind of, maybe they can kind of modify things a little bit, get the illusion out of the way. But anyways, Pisces and Scorpio are two of the two of the most painful, shall we say, archetypes in astrology. And this aspect can result in a repeated wounding experience in your life. There's like a pattern of having these wounds sticking to your body. And because of all the repression of Neptune, you can kind of be consumed with an inner rage that you can't even, pinpoint. And there can be an extreme mentality of I'm either the predator or I'm the prey. I'm the predator or I'm the prey. Well, you don't have to be either one of them. So the truth comes. We're transforming, right? We're growing from the illusion to the truth. So the truth comes in this placement when we are willing to turn to therapeutic techniques or therapy, talking to somebody about what's been going on, going through emotional purging, going through self-empowerment techniques to deal with PTSD, or turning to other forms of spiritual practices that allows one to come to terms with one's psychological dilemmas of repressing pain in order to feel powerful. This process is like this. Think about it like this. Like you have a cut in your arm. It's a pain. Okay? It's like a cut in your arm. And what you're doing with Neptune in the 8th house is you're putting a band-aid over the wound and you keep it there for a long time. And then you get into situations where nobody knows that you have a wound there. You also sometimes don't even know there's a wound there, so you get another one, another cut, and then you put more band-aid on it. Repeated wounding experiences like this, what you really have to do when you come to the truth of this is you have to remove the band-aid and you have to look at the wound. And you have to say, I have a wound. It's been there. It's really deep. And am I gonna keep putting a band-aid over it just so I don't have to feel it and then I get more and then it turns into this bitterness and depression almost? Or am I gonna be brave enough to allow the wound to heal by some kind of therapeutic techniques so that my skin can grow again and I don't have to put a band-aid on it anymore? And you have to stop beating yourself up by thinking that you are the victim. A lot of the times we think that we are the victim of a situation because we want to avoid the responsibility that we are also responsible for certain situations, because we can't even begin to think how we can be so bad as to be responsible for a bad situation that happened to us. So therefore we must be the victim because we are not a bad person. But by doing this, you are hurting yourself even more. You are hurting yourself by saying that you are the victim. You are suppressing your power. You are disempowering yourself by having a victim mentality. Whereas if you can say that I am partially responsible for the things that are happening to me because I put out a certain energy, I attract a certain energy towards me, I am not a victim. I am a part of this process of growth that I have to go through. I have the power to change the situation because I am not the victim, because I am putting my energy out there. I can choose to put out a new energy out there. But if I think that I am a victim, there's nothing that I can do. There is nothing. The truth is that whatever you're attracting, you're putting out there first. And you are never a victim. You are always part of the situation, and you can always change the situation. You can use your really amazing powers of understanding depth psychology to protect yourself rather than to defend yourself, right? There is a lot of fears of rejection with this one, and when you come out of this, you will see that the root of the fear of rejection is self-esteem issues. Think about it like this. You are a strawberry. Okay, doesn't matter. There's a strawberry. And you're giving a strawberry to someone, right? And that person says, no, I don't want the strawberry. I don't like strawberries. They're rejecting the strawberry. Okay, you're the strawberry then. Because I don't want the strawberry. Is there anything wrong with the strawberry? No, there's nothing wrong with the strawberry. That person just doesn't prefer the strawberry. There'll be other people that prefer the strawberry. There'll be other people that don't prefer the strawberry. That person might prefer apples. There's nothing wrong with the strawberry. If you are being rejected, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with being rejected by somebody. Nothing wrong with you and yourself and who you are and your personality. Nothing is wrong. It's just not meeting up. It's just going like that. And that's okay. That's how equilibrium is maintained in the universe. The spiritual transformation of Neptune in the 8th house for you is to understand that the absolute truth of the situation is that yes, we are all energy, and energy is immortal. Energy can't be created nor destroyed. It can only be transformed and exchanged and other things. But you have to also understand that the relative truth of the situation is that within this physical human form, yes, we can be destroyed. We will have to die. So, when you are spiritually transformed, you will have a deep understanding of the fact that we have to allow the dark realizations of our vulnerability to empower us to live every day with love and kindness and compassion before we don't have a chance to do that, before we are forever really alone. When you are spiritually evolved, you understand that we have to open our heart to the universe and understand that pain is not a punishment for us. And all that pain that you had to go through, it is not for nothing. It is for your spiritual evolution and growth and makes you who you are today and who you'll be in the future. It's not a punishment. Nobody's punishing you. With Neptune in the 8th house, you have an amazing ability to do shadow work, to really look inside yourself and see which part of your personality is being repressed into your unconscious, because you can dive really deep into that. So you can really dig deep into your unconscious and find out what personalities are repressed, because that's the personality that you are projecting onto other people. And being able to embrace those qualities within yourself, those darknesses within yourself, the darkness that you project onto others is actually a darkness within you. Understanding that will allow you to accept people for who they really are, will allow you to acknowledge and accept others' weaknesses because you have them too. That's my take on Neptune in the 8th house. I hope that wasn't too heavy, but this placement is heavy, so I'm trying to smile so that's not too heavy. Anyways, if you like this video, please give a thumbs up and hit the red subscribe button below if you haven't. If you have, then thank you very much for coming along with us on these astrology growth journeys, learning, growing together, and having better relationships with other people. I'll see you soon, guys, in the next video. Bye!